Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called the in about that the mother has written on a wall. My mom never can't find her. They've been dealing with her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here for another ATS live stream. Hello, Adrian, K-Braze, Sherry. Good to see you. Hi, Delana. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Lambs Bond, 007, B Crumbs. If you could just hit the like button at this moment, I'd really appreciate it. So I know you guys have seen the update that took place this week. Richard Allen has been moved to a different prison. So this was something that his defense attorneys, before they got taken off of the case, were fighting to do because they were feeling that he was being mistreated there. And the judge pretty much denied it and said, no, he's fine where he's at, regardless of the letter that an inmate wrote that said, I've witnessed Richard being treated poorly. And guys, just let me know if you can hear me okay too while I talk. Regardless of the letter an inmate wrote, regardless of the defense attorneys laying out their reasons why he should be moved. So there was just a lot of stuff that was at play about him moving, and it was denied by Judge Gull. Now, all of a sudden, this whole operation takes place this week, and he's whisked off in the night, and he's moved to a different prison, which is hours and hours away. And, it's just on top of all that, we end up finding out that it's the prison that Keegan Kline is at. So again, is this just something that is just we're looking into too much? Because I know that everybody has touched on this, including Justice Serve Daily. Hello, good to see you. Everyone's been talking about it. Hi, Scottish Queen, good to see you. And we've all just been wondering, is it just coincidence that he's at the same prison that Keegan Kline is at? Or is it just, they're doing construction at his prison, it was said, and now they've moved him away, and that's just where he fell. Other people have said there's plenty of other prisons he could have gone to. Why is he at this one? This is suspicious. This is weird. Something's up. Other people have said this is a tactic and they want Keegan Kline to get information from him. Other people have said, no, this is a tactic, but it has nothing to do with Keegan getting information. It's just, what do you guys think so far? Again, I put together some clips, kind of summing up the news this week. And then I've added in visuals that I just want to go through with you guys and just talk about the case in general. So again, the big news is he has been moved. I believe in the filing, they cited a code in the paperwork that pretty much says something along the lines of he was in imminent danger where he was at. So that's why they wanted to move him. This was a filing put through by the state's attorney general. So it had nothing to do with Judge Gull. We are still waiting for the Supreme Court to let us know their ruling on if Judge Gull is going to be removed or not, and if Baldwin and Rosie are going to be reinstated as his attorneys. I believe that they're done. I think, and when I say they, I mean Rosie and Baldwin are done. Like, they're not going to be reinstated by the Supreme Court. That's just my opinion. I think that Judge Gull is likely just going to stay on the case. But if I'm proven wrong, I will be definitely shocked. And of course, I will come out and say, I was wrong because, we're all just going with the flow and watching this kind of unfold in front of our eyes. And every single day, there's a new twist and turn. So again, let's get into it. IDOC plans to close Indiana State Prison to make way for new $1.2 billion facility in Westville. So there is talk of, there's, they're changing things up. There's construction, there's this and that. So is it as simple as, they're moving all the inmates and we just end up finding out about Richard Allen because he's under a microscope for us? Or is there more to it? Hello, Tony. Good to see you. And so let's just get into it. Again, I'm going to play some clips I put together and then we can just talk through them. So happy you guys are here. Okay.
Delphi double murder suspect Richard Allen is moving again.
The man accused of killing Abby Williams and Libby German in 2017 has been ordered transferred to his fourth jail or prison cell in the last 13 months while he awaits trial.
Richard Allen's criminal trial journey has been marked with controversy, competing legal battles, uncertainty, and inexplicable orders. This transfer order is only the latest twist in this tragic case. There have been a handful of times Richard Allen has been seen in public, always entering or leaving the Carroll County Courthouse, as he stands accused of the murders of teenagers Libby German and Abby Williams on the bank of Deer Creek below the Monon High Bridge outside of Delphi in February of 2017. Before they were separated from the case, defense attorneys Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rosie argued that Allen should be removed from the Westville Correctional Facility, where the state says he's being held for his own protection. Since his arrest in October of 2022, Allen has sat behind bars in Carroll County, White County, Westville, and is now on the move to Wabash Valley Correctional in southwestern Indiana, 230.7 miles and 3.5 hours away in a car from his new defense team in Fort Wayne. Baldwin and Rosie previously argued that Allen's pretrial incarceration so far away from his first defense team and his hometown of Delphi made it hard to meet and advise him on the case or stay in touch with his family. The attorneys also said it was unsafe for Allen to remain in Westville because his corrections officers wore patches displaying allegiance to Odinism, a Germanic Nordic practice that the lawyers claim was present at the Delphi murder scene. Special Judge Fran Gull deferred to the Carroll County Sheriff and the Indiana Department of Correction in maintaining Allen's housing at Westville Correctional, though there's no indication why the accused man is being moved even farther away to south of Terre Haute, where Wabash Correctional is less crowded or may have better programs for persons held in custody, or keeps Allen away from the corrections officers who displayed allegiance to Odinism.
All right. So hello, Corey. And I saw Johnny in here and Chase, Malmac. Good to see you guys. So there is just some stuff I want to pause and go through. Again, that was pretty much the whole story about him being moved. I guess some reporters have even asked the prison more about the incident that took place when he was tased. And the prison and the warden has yet to get back to some journalists, just asking simple questions. I want to know a lot more about him getting tased. The thing is, too, I just feel like this move for Richard Allen, it could have to do with the construction and stuff like that. But I really think that the Attorney General just wanted to wipe the slate clean and start over as far as his incarceration time. Again, he is not even, a lot of people wondering why he's in a prison instead of a jail. There were county jails that said we can take him here. He didn't end up in those ones. There's other people who say that he's being treated better in a prison as far as better food and stuff like that. We heard that he wasn't being treated well at all. my stance is, even if I think he's guilty, I think some of the things that were taking place just seems a little shady. And I don't think that somebody who hasn't stood trial yet should be treated as if they've been convicted. So if he was convicted and the stuff was taking place, I'm not going to lie, I might turn a blind eye a little bit, because I'm like, well, it was proven in court that he did this to those girls, and who's there? Who was there for the girls on that day? They were alone, and they were defenseless. So, but the fact that he hasn't even been in trial, people are talking about how, he was being mistreated and his rights were being stomped on. I think that that's wrong. I think that you can think that Richard Allen is guilty in this, but also believe that maybe the stuff that was going on in that prison was wrong. He's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. He hasn't had his day in court. And some of the stuff that was taking place, I think, is just questionable. And I've felt this way about other cases too. For example, Chris Watts, there was a whole thing about when he was held in solitary confinement, and his mother wrote him a letter, and she pretty much was begging him to fight in a trial and go through the process and not to sign a plea deal, and admitting to this. And he ends up, as everyone knows, he signed that plea deal. And then the jail gave him that letter that his mom had written him weeks prior, begging him not to do it. So, there's things like that are like irk me about certain things in the justice system. And I'm like, well, that's wrong. Like, he should have been able to get the mail from his mother, read her thoughts and all that. Again, that situation's iffy, because he was refusing calls from his family too, because he thought the district attorney was listening in, which I'm sure they were. But, I just think that it's not just black and white in this situation. And again, I don't want people to think I flip-flop. I started off this case as soon as Richard Allen was arrested. So I'm very much like catching up on all the years of research that a lot of people have done. But I was confident that they had the right guy. I thought that he looked like the description of Bridge Guy. Again, this image of him on the screen doesn't look like Bridge Guy. I believe over time he's changed his appearance, but I'm also in the belief that he didn't do this alone. Not because I don't think he could, because I think that, with a gun and all that, like maybe he could do this alone. But I just feel like statements that the prosecution and law enforcement have made over these years since 2017, they've always sort of insinuated that there was more than one person involved in this. And that's what I'm hung up on. So I've done all this research. I believe that perhaps Richard is the guy. I'm not 100%, but I'm not 100% that he isn't the guy. So of course, I want more evidence to be laid out in front of me to really be sure. But I'm feeling like for them to put the bond when he was arrested, there was like an astronomical number for his bond. And I feel like they wouldn't do that on somebody who was maybe innocent. Like, I just feel like they must have something on him that is very solid, and we just have to wait to see what it is. But I can't help but feel like you guys have said this, and that, and we've laid it out in other live streams too. If you check out the playlist, they've all kind of insinuated that there's more than one person involved, or there could be. They've used murderers, plural, and I'll show you that clip. Scottish Queen says, I've been watching. The sheriff and law enforcement were being biased and framing evidence around the guy. It's a documentary. I'm shocked how much it goes on. But so I'm untrusting of small town law enforcement. And you know what? Hello, Corey. Good to see you. I totally understand that. And I've seen it, in other cases where you're like, how did they not figure this out yet? And that's how I feel about his tip. And somebody mentioned, I can't get past, it was way earlier in chat, how they can't get past how they missed. Okay, K-Braze, I still can't get over that they never contacted him to interview him in the very beginning, but they have interviews of other people that were there. So, that is a huge hiccup. I mean, hiccup is being nice. How did they miss it? A lot of people are saying that Keegan Kline was the person who tipped them off to Richard Allen or maybe threw him under the bus. I think that that's possible. What level is Keegan Kline in all this? I still have questions. I've only read a little bit of his transcript, like in his interview with law enforcement, and I think that that might be something to kind of go through again and just kind of look things over again. What do you guys think about that? Like, we could read through his police interview on another stream and just kind of look through what Keegan had to say. A lot of people think that Keegan Kline is a liar. Other people say that there is no connection between Keegan Kline and Richard Allen. But that, I say, well, then what about a connection between Richard Allen and Tony Kline, Keegan Kline's father? Is that still an option? Like, when they say there's no connection between Richard and Keegan Kline, is it possible that with that verbiage it's true, but honestly what is the connection is Tony Kline and Richard Allen? I think that that's still possible. You guys let me know what you want. Delana says, I still believe Keegan Kline is involved in some way, shape, or form, even if it was him letting Richard Allen know the girls would be there. Right. And everyone talks about this Dropbox. I need to examine that aspect further. But I'm under the impression that Keegan has admitted that other people had access to the Anthony Schatz catfishing account. And I believe that there's a possibility that if multiple people were able to log in to Anthony Schatz, that there is a possibility that, you go, like, for instance, Instagram, you go into Instagram and there's a conversation that somebody had with them, and somebody else logs into the Instagram under Anthony Schatz and sees the conversation and kind of picks up the conversation as if they're the same person. So was there somebody who's seen that Keegan Kline was saying stuff the night at the sleepover of the girls, and the next morning somebody logs in and sees that they had plans to go to the bridge or whatever was being talked about, and so they decide, this is my opportunity, I'm going to step in and go there and see what happens. I think that there's a way that it could be possible if there has to be a paper trail, obviously, of Richard Allen signing into Anthony Schatz and stuff. And of course, they're saying that there is none, or we haven't seen it yet. But I just think, there's still time to find that out. And so Keegan Kline still has Dropbox account when arrested him in August 2022. So that's interesting. I think maybe it's very possible they all played a part in this case, although they might not be able to connect them all, but they all might really know each other. Maybe, yeah, a pedo ring possible. I definitely, for some reason, my gut is feeling like that's the connection as far as why this happened. I believe Libby was targeted. That's why I kind of showed her social media accounts in the beginning of these clips. She was very vulnerable on social media, putting herself out there. And we played in the last stream her talking to some guy, talked to Hannah Shakespeare about how he was talking to Libby online, and she had mentioned somebody a few weeks prior was bothering her or something. So there's definitely circumstantial evidence to prove or to say that she was kind of being harassed online, possibly, and stalked online, possibly. And obviously being catfished is some sort of harassment. It's a trap. And yeah, I definitely think there's a ring going on. I think that this definitely could have some sort of snuff film aspect to it as well, which is another reason why I'm not totally convinced that Richard Allen is alone in this. I think that, maybe he was just the one that got them down the hill and there's other people there, or he's the one that took the photos, or, I don't know what role he is in, but I just, in my gut, and I feel like with statements law enforcement and prosecution has said, that there is more people who are involved in this. That's just how I feel. I don't believe Alan is involved, but if he is, I'm convinced he didn't do it alone. He was 5'1", 5'2", in poor shape, and he maneuvered two athletic girls down a rugged hill through water waist high. And that's the thing is the height aspect. So we've heard that there's a whole bunch of different quotes of what his height is. 5'4". Here you're saying 5'1", 5'2". The flyers that I've been going through, a bridge guy from the beginning of the case till whenever his arrest, they ranged as well. Some of them said 5'5" to 5'10". Some of them said 5'6" to 5'10". Others said, oh, that's what it was. FBI said that Ron Logan's height, his appearance wasn't inconsistent with Bridge Guy's appearance. So Ron Logan's over 6 foot. So how are they saying all this stuff kind of matches Bridge Guy? It's like, I just don't know if I fully believe. Hello, Roxanne. Good to see you. And hi, Alex. Good to see you. I don't fully know if I can trust every single height estimate of Bridge Guy that we've seen. Just because law enforcement has said, oh, he's between this height and that height, I don't know if I can trust it, because FBI said that, well, Ron Logan could be Bridge Guy. Ron Logan isn't 5'4" or 5'5", so, or even up to 5'10". So I just feel like I can't trust that estimate of his height on the bridge. I know some people will have their reasons why, and they'll show why that he's this height or that height. I just don't know. I think it's hard to tell in the 3-second clip that we have, and without seeing more of the surroundings and to compare to. I don't know. I just need more. But let me just play for you this clip of law enforcement. He uses plural when he says murderers. It's one of the first pressers. And we've played other clips prior in this live, or in this playlist for this case, that have shown that they are thinking that it's more than one person.
I would also like to thank in advance the person who's going to call our tip line and give us that tidbit of information that's going to lead to the arrest of the murderers of Liberty German and Abigail Williams.
So where exactly does Keegan Kline Where does Keegan Kline fit in? This presser was after Richard Allen was arrested.
Hold on just a minute. We're not going to comment on that right now. As part of the investigation.
Allen has no criminal history.
All right, so I'm pausing it. Like I said, I got some things I want to go through. So is it possible, I go all over the place as far as Keegan Kline. Did he cut a deal? Is it just happenstance that he was communicating with Libby the day before she's murdered? I go all over the place because Libby was also talking to that boy who we played in the last stream, who's on that Hannah Shakespeare documentary. And he says that he was talking to her the night of the sleepover as well. So clearly she had, which a lot of single people, if you're on social media, you're on Tinder, these dating apps, you're talking to more than one person at a time. So is it just bad luck for Keegan Kline? Then we have the fact that he took a polygraph, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, they asked him a question about if he knows who killed the girls, and he failed that question. So what level does Keegan know? The trip to Vegas that took place right after the murders, all of that is very suspicious, which is why I feel like it would be beneficial to go back through his police interview and just read through it. Again, we haven't done that on this channel. I've done little bits of it in previous streams, but just specific aspects. No problem. We appreciate everyone's opinion. And again, I'm not 100% guilty or innocent. I just know in my gut, I feel like there's more people involved. What level, I don't know. Like I said, is it one person held the camera and the other one had the knife and gun? Is it one person led them down the hill and the other people down the hill did the rest? I don't really know. But it's not fitting in my gut that it's just Richard Allen alone in this. I don't know why. And I think that it has nothing to do with like, oh, he's only this tall and um the water that was rushing, all that. I know that the defense was just amping up why they feel like, no, it's not our guy. Like, he couldn't have done it himself because this and that. I definitely appreciate them doing their job well and laying out there why they think that it couldn't be done. But I believe that physically he could have, Richard Allen could have done this alone, but I just don't think he did, based on statements since 2017 up until even after he was arrested. Doug Carter was saying that they were still going to investigate things and that nobody was cleared. When he was asked about Ron Logan, he said nobody is cleared. If he wasn't involved, I feel he knows who was, in my opinion, Keegan Kline. And I think that that's definitely, look at Chumley. I know, right? Oh man. Hi, MK. Good to see you. Keegan Kline set up his Tony Kline meetups, and Tony Kline used Emily Ann to have with my 45-year-old father. Yeah, that's the thing that really is like, that shows this level of predatorial sophistication, if that's even a phrase. The fact that not only did they have Anthony Schatz set up as, we all know what Anthony Schatz looked like, this young guy who's very attractive. Apparently he made it seem like he had money and sports cars and just anything that a young girl would probably be like goo goo gaga over. In fact, I believe in the police interview, the police pretty much say like Libby was in love with Anthony Schatz, wasn't she? And like they know the communications between Libby and Anthony Schatz that none of us know. So they were under the impression that she was enthralled, I think was the word that they used with Keegan, that Libby was enthralled with Anthony. And what is unsettling is, like you said, not only did they have Anthony Schatz set up to kind of lure these girls, but they had a girl set up so that she could befriend these girls and kind of, groom them into thinking like, oh, well, it's not bad being with an older guy, or, you should try it sometime, and just try to like get them to be okay with being face to face with an older person and get comfortable with the idea of everyone does it, like I do it and blah, blah, blah. And it's not anything bad. And so it's just that, to me, makes it seem like I do believe there was more than one person using Keegan Kline's Anthony Schatz account. I think that Anthony Schatz was being used by his father, and some of the language they even talk about in the interview, which is why I think we need to go over his interview again. But they talk about how some of the language that is used with the girls is like, doesn't sound the same as other conversations that's being said with the girls, like just different slang, different words used. And, clearly he was letting his father use these devices that had these accounts on it. And, we really can't take Tony Kline or Keegan Kline out of the equation, but I'm having a hard time fitting in where exactly they go. The other thing too is the gag order. Justice served daily. Help me out with this one. So Keegan Kline has his interview with Murder Sheet in May 2020, or this year. But that's after the gag order has been put on this case. So how, if Keegan Kline is involved, how is he able to not be under this gag order? Or is it just like he's involved, but he's been given immunity and he's been, protected with this deal? I'm just trying hard to figure out, like, if there's a gag order with those involved, how was Keegan okay to be speaking to murder sheet about the case. Agree. That's why I'm working on my why I believe Keegan Kline is involved video. Oh, good. I'll be watching that for sure. And everyone, if you haven't subbed to Justice Served Daily, she's been on this case for so long. In fact, I think that that's how you and I kind of met, was when I jumped into this case. And then I kind of started becoming acquainted with people who cover this case. And I'm happy for knowledgeable people because, again, I'm not afraid to say that I jumped into this case 5 years into it. And I'm kind of playing catch up, like even with the fact that that Chadwell guy is in this prison as well, and the egregious crimes that he's committed and is in jail for is very similar to the ones Keegan Kline was, just crimes against children. So I didn't know who that was. And I found that out this week. So there's just some things that I need to get, fully acquainted with this case. He is not officially charged on the case, so not under a gag order. Oh, see, that's the other thing too, is they're in the media, when they talk about Keegan Kline, they always say, although he has never been named a suspect or charged with any crimes in the Delphi murder, he was speaking to them and under this catfish account, blah, blah, blah. So is that also maybe a strategy? Like, because I believe that Murder Sheet is kind of being used as like a mouthpiece for prosecution. That's my opinion. I'm not talking badly. That's just how I see them. So was it set up to where they kind of connect, they were able to have this connection with Keegan Kline and do that interview, and they've left it open to not charge Keegan Kline with anything like associated with this like yet? Or is it part of his immunity or deal that he won't be charged with anything connected to this crime, but he's obviously going to be in prison for the rest of his life? He's facing 43 years. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out like some loopholes maybe that are being taken place when it comes to Keegan Kline. Lamb's Bond said, I didn't know anything about the transfer till now. It kind of happened, the 6th, the paperwork was filed, and then I think like that night, or like the 7th in the morning or at night, it was very much just happened, and we're like, whoa, what? We should do a show together on Delphi for sure. Who is this dude filled with helium at the top? That's Keegan. That is the one person that I can say with full certainty is not Bridge Guy. I think that as much as I've looked at the Bridge Guy images over and over, I'm like, is it Ron Logan? Is it not? Is it Richard Allen? Is it BH? You guys know who BH is. I've just kind of gone all around. And hello, Alex Erickson. I know I said hi to you. I just want to make sure everyone's kind of checking out Alex's channel too. She covers this case as well as other cases, and she is excellent. She has great insight. I tried for ages to get you into this, you in criminality, and then I managed to get you both after 2 years of saying you should look at it. But here you are now. Yeah, it's a rabbit hole that we've fallen down. Criminality, I think, is more far gone than me. Like I can still talk other cases. Like, obviously I'm stuck down this rabbit hole, and it's definitely a deep one. I'm happy to be down it with criminality because she's awesome. But it's just, wow. I don't know when we're going to get out of it. Yeah. Right. That's it. Keegan Kline is not Bridge Guy, and we know this, not because of appearances, but because the bridge didn't collapse. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Alan has no.
Okay, so this aspect I kind of put in. This is just I've played this clip in other live streams. It's been in my files. I feel it's important. I feel like I have to re-go over this because there's just misinformation being put out. And this is from, I know it says 11/1, but this is 11/1/22 that this report was made. Not this year. And the reason why I added this is because I'm seeing like pretty much fake news or just false information or misinformation. I'm not saying people are purposely saying wrong things, but I just want to lay it out there that there is a paper trail, or at least some history of DV with Richard Allen. Some people have come out saying he's never been, he has no criminal charges. And that's true. He didn't ever get charged for anything against his wife or anyone else. But there is a paper trail of a dispatch from 911 of the wife calling about him and violence. And, you know, I think it's important to kind of get information right, because although I'm not 100% that he's guilty, I don't think that it's right for people to say it can't be him because he has no history of violence and he's not a criminal. There's no criminal history. For one, people have committed crimes who never had any criminal history before. For two, there actually is a paper trail of his wife. She didn't file charges, but she brought him to the hospital, and I believe the police came to the house and, you know, touched base about like keeping the peace. And it says it in the segment, and there is definitely other articles besides this news segment that kind of has reported this. So I want to just lay this out there just to kind of correct some false information. I'm not saying that it's, you know, he's the killer, him only, and all this stuff. But I think that when I hear things of people saying like, well, he has no criminal history and there's no history of violence, maybe they just don't know about this. So that's why I'm playing this again. And hello, Shay Bonet, good to see you.
Criminal history, but Carroll County dispatch records show he had one encounter with police in 2015. The sheriff said it was a domestic issue where Allen.
So again, 2015. So when people say things like, oh, the cheese was sliding off his cracker for a while, I feel like this is sort of a part of the timeline of Richard Allen. We don't know much about him. But in 2015 is when this incident took place. Again, 2 years before the murders. But is it something that kind of was escalating in him? Or does it have, you know, a lot of murders take place when people are drinking. In fact, there's like a huge statistic of crimes that are committed, you know, murders that are committed where alcohol is involved. This was during the day. So then it's like, okay, so why would he be drunk during the day? But who knows? I mean, they had something about somebody logging into Anthony Schott's account that morning at 8 a.m. Was that when things were kind of starting for whoever was stalking these girls and finding out where they were going? You know, they go on Instagram at 8 a.m. They're checking stuff out with Anthony Schott's in their communications. And then they realize like, oh, well, they had plans to go here or there. I don't know. But I do. So there is no police report, sweet dude. Good to see you. There was no criminal charges filed. So all they had was, according to this news segment, was a dispatch record of it. And I believe there'll be a record through the hospital because they went to the hospital, I guess. And that's totally fair, Janie Lane. She says he could have a mile-long rap sheet, which I think he did have a bunch of speeding tickets. But again, rap sheet, and I still could not make myself believe he did this, much less by himself, because the timeline. And that's all stuff that I 100% think the prosecution, you're going to need to lay this out for the 12 jurors and for people like us who have been following this so closely and want like to know like what exactly happened. How do you think that this happened? Timeline is so important. And I don't know, it's going to be very hard to kind of sell that for 12 jurors, I think, let alone the true crime community, right? So again, let me just rewind this a little bit without pausing, and we can kind of watch this streamlined.
Allen has no criminal history, but Carroll County dispatch records show he had one encounter with police in 2015. The sheriff said it was a domestic issue where Allen was supposedly drunk and his wife took him to a Lafayette hospital. No law enforcement action was taken, but deputies were sent to his Delphi home to, quote, keep the peace.
to keep the peace, whatever that means. So I think that there will be maybe on Reddit, again, this is just stuff that I've had in my archives for this case. I don't think, besides like the speeding tickets and stuff, I haven't seen anything on paper, including like Richard Allen and something criminal. So there must be some paper trail tying this whole incident. And again, like Scottish Queen says, alcohol can change a loving, kind, quiet man into a nasty, evil, violent person. And I'm sorry to hear that. And it's like, was this just one mishap that took place between him and his wife? It could be. And she didn't file charges because it's just not his norm. Or it's a situation where, sadly, in a lot of cases, they stay because they're just accustomed. They've been together, I think, since high school, haven't they? Again, I'm just throwing ideas out there. I'm not saying that that is the narrative to follow. I just think it's all relevant. McClellan criminal record is 2 pages long, and his dad is an arsonist. Help him get lead prosecutor job. And that brings me back to the question that I always have in my description box with this case. Is there corruption? Is there shady things going on in the courtroom and in law enforcement? And that is always something that's like in the back of my mind when going through stuff. I'd like to have trust in law enforcement. Hello, Aries Pjork, sorry. But again, it's just, yeah, alcohol is evil. It really is. I believe that alcohol is the gateway drug, honestly. Major corruption. Yeah, I could see it for sure. It's, there's a lot of things, like including, like we were just talking about with McClellan. Would it be better if they just kind of wipe the slate clean as far as, we've gotten rid of the defense lawyers? Should we get a new prosecutor? Should we move this to a different venue? Like, is that why he was also moved down to Abash? Had 3 major stressors happen before murders. Brother-in-law died in motorcycle accident. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. He took care of his mother-in-law, so his wife was now taking care of her. Daughter is getting married. Yeah, those. And, it's like people kind of were kind of getting on Gray Hughes about his connection, like linking the fact that Libby looks so much like his Richard Allen's daughter. And they were saying, oh, that's preposterous that you're tying this link together. But, it might not be just the looks aspect. I don't know. I think that maybe he felt like he could commit a crime like this because the daughter was out of the house. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, now I have a little bit more freedom. She's married and being taken care of. She was our only child. So now I can do things that I didn't get to do when she was living in the house. Like I've heard a lot of times parents say like, well, we're going to wait until so-and-so graduates and then we're going to do this. Was that something in Richard Allen's mind where he was like, I want to wait until she's graduated and married out of the house? Again, I'm just speculating. I just think that like it is. I don't think there's really much to the fact that Libby and his daughter look similar. They don't really look that much alike. They look alike, but they're not like, oh my gosh. But I think that for me, it's more the fact that like maybe he felt like he had the freedom and the time and like, if the wife is at work, you don't have to worry about your child being home when you're coming home trying to hide something. You know what I mean? But I don't know. But all those issues do not equal murder. And that's true. I mean, that is absolutely true. Like just because this took place doesn't mean that he's a murderer, but it doesn't mean that he's not. That's kind of where I'm at too, where I'm like, okay, so it could be something or it could be nothing. This next little part that I want to go through is just to kind of look at these comparisons and side by sides. Is it that law enforcement think Richard Allen kidnapped them and maybe he didn't do the rest, or aided in killing them and was mainly just the bridge guy who is guys down the hill voice and lured them to their death? I don't know. I've gone back and forth on him looking like bridge guy. When I started this case, I was like, oh yeah, I see it. It looks like him, especially when you see these photos like right here where he's, you know, he hasn't gained all that weight. He hasn't grown that long goatee. You know, he looks more fit here. And this is right around the images of what he looked like at the time of the murders. So you guys let me know yay or nay in chat, and for replay, yes or no. Like, this is image 1 and it's just going to flip through to a few of them. But you guys let me know. So yes or no for this one. Now we're not only looking, and this is what kind of makes this case really like confusing. We're not only looking at Bridge Guy, but we're also looking at 2 different sketches. So, and this is something that I always do when I cover cases. I like to source a federal law enforcement agent that I'm very, very close to. I won't say what agency he works in or his name, but from time to time, I'm able to send him things. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? He thought that this particular photo of Richard Allen looks like the young guy sketch in the eyes and the nose specifically, he said. And I'm kind of under that same impression. The hair obviously is way off. The, you know, facial hair is obviously way off, but the thing that I get hung up on is they said that the young guy sketch is somebody from the ages of 18 to 40. Like, what? Or it said somebody who appears to have like a younger guy looking face. So was Richard Allen clean shaven that day? That's something I would like to know. Melanie says, looks like him to me. Definitely could be. I think, okay, and that's the thing is people are saying no. I don't think Richard Allen looks like any of them. My opinion is someone had to be at the bottom of the hill or the girls would have ran, as it would have taken him longer going down that steep hill. That's true. I never even thought about that. Law enforcement said Ron Logan was the same size as Bridge Guy in the PCA, and then law enforcement arrested 5'4" Richard Allen as Bridge Guy. And that's what I think before you joined, Sweet Dude, I was saying, like, I cannot even rely on the flyers that were quoting Bridge Guy as 5'5", and we've also said it said 5'6" in some of them to 5'10", because FBI was over there saying, well, Ron Logan's appearance isn't inconsistent with Bridge Guy's appearance. So it's like, wait, but Ron Logan's over 6 foot. But now you're saying that Bridge Guy is this and that. It's like, I feel like when I joined this case, people didn't want to talk about the sketches. But now I'm to the point in this case where, like, I don't even want to talk about the height. And like, I'm not saying you guys can't. I'm just saying for me, like, I'm at the point where not only do I feel like there is a possibility of corruption, but I feel like there's definitely I think that law enforcement were like incompetent. And I think that based off of how they missed the Richard Allen tip, and a lot of other, I mean, we could do a whole live stream about why I think that they're incompetent. But one of the things that kind of added up to me is like, I can't trust their height quote. So as much as I want to say like, yeah, like he's too short to be Bridge Guy, I don't know. To me, he looks like a Bridge Guy looks taller than 5'4", but it's hard to tell. And that's where I'm at. Oh, really? Justice Served Daily said that's why FBI removed height and weight from final poster. And that's unfortunate because that's something that's important for the public to know. Like, when you want us to identify this person, but we can't rely on what you've quoted him as like height and weight. And plus the height and weight was such a big range. Like the weight was what, 180 to 220 or something. It's like, okay. I personally think that Richard Allen changed his appearance because I think he came forward with his tip to get ahead of things. And I think he changed his appearance to get ahead of things because once that image of him was displayed, you know, he realized that he was screwed and he needed to change how he looked and then that's when he gained weight and grew the long goatee. That's just my opinion. I know other people are saying like, get ahead of what? Because they didn't even release the bridge guy photo yet when Richard came forward. But I feel like he might have felt that he was seen by eyewitnesses that day. So he, how criminals like to kind of insert themselves or get ahead of things or steer the narrative, that might be why he did that. And that's just my opinion. Yeah, we waited 2 years to get the younger sketch too. Everyone was like, what the hell? Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them. The farther some is away from a camera, they look smaller than once they get face to face with you, right? And that's the other thing too, is like, how am I supposed to tell by this grainy picture, not only the face, but the height and the weight? You know what I mean? Like, it's just that, why can't they give us more? Why can't they give us more than those 3 seconds? Not one single witness said he was short. Yeah, I believe one said no taller than 5'10", though, which to me, anything less, I don't want to offend people, but any guy less than 5'10" to me is on the shorter end of things. But you're right. I mean, they didn't say he was a shorter guy. And they also never said that he was sweaty. That's the thing that I get kind of hung up on, is like, if these bodies were moved and staged and everything was done by 3:30, like they've quoted, then wouldn't he have been like sweaty and like all this stuff? And yet nobody says that. Big difference to what he looks like now. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So, and then other people commented, and I appreciate your guys' comments, that men end up changing their appearance naturally over time. And it's like, yeah, they do, but I feel like his drastic change from the time he was arrested, like on my thumbnail, that image of him, a mugshot, to this image right here, it's almost like, wow, it's a stunning change. But anyways, like I was saying, the federal agent that I talked to, the federal agent that I talked to basically said that he can see the young sketch being Richard Allen there only in the eyes, like in the eyes and the nose. And I feel like that's valid. Now, this was done by a moderator of mine. She's called the analyst. I've been studying cases with her ever since I jumped into the Kurt Cobain death investigation. And that case, we have very limited information to kind of piece things together, but she's very good at visuals. And she just did like an overlay of that on Bridge Guy and Richard Allen's face. The right side is still Bridge Guy, and she's kind of faded it into the overlay of him there on the left. So yeah, it has been modified. I'm being totally transparent with how it was done, who did it. I trust the person who modified it because of other cases that we worked. And, we only have a few death scene investigation pictures of Kurt Cobain, and she's done amazing work on that. But I just feel like if we're comparing photos out there that people have kind of put side by side with Richard Allen, that this was a decent one to kind of share. But again, you guys say yay or nay, and I won't be offended at all. And hello, Foxy Lady. Good to see you again. So this was something I just found in a Facebook group, kind of honing in on where we were saying, well, I was saying, and my source was saying that the eyes and the nose look similar to the young guy. That is, I can't deny it. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. And everyone's perception is different. The thing that I don't want to happen is people to just be like dead set, no, it's not him, and just say that this stuff doesn't look like him. Because look at this. Like, this was from another Facebook group for Delphi. This is after his arrest. It's so hard because the Bridge Guy picture is so grainy. But is there some similarities? Could there be? To me, it looks more like him than Ron Logan and Jason Jensen and Chris Todd are in the impression that Bridge Guy is Ron Logan, and no disrespect to their opinion at all. But yes or no? I'm seeing people say heck yes. agree. I was looking at it earlier. Yeah, and everything comes from some artist's hand too, right? It's not grainy, really? You think the bridge guy pick is clear? It's altered. Oh, yeah, some people think that as well. Anything's possible until we would see the metadata on the Snapchat. I just don't think law enforcement puts a name on a wheel at the police station and spins it, and whoever it lands on, they arrest for murder. Just saying. I I really would hope that it wouldn't go that way, and I agree. Like, I don't think, unfortunately, it took 5 years for them to be like, "Oh, wait a minute, what is this?" And now other people have said that Keegan Kline named him, and then they searched their information, and that's how they kind of stumbled on Richard Allen's name and stuff in the tip. And they're like, "Wait, what is this?" I can't say Bridge Guy looks like he's got more build than Richard. The jacket is just so baggy that I guess that explains why they're quoting 180 to 220 possibly. No, I honestly don't think it looks like him any more than it looks like my son. And that's the thing too, is what are 12 jurors going to think? Will 12 people, I don't even think we have 12 people in here right now who think that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy with the appearances. Now, the way that he looks now, if I was a juror and I knew nothing about this case and I'm sitting on the jury and I'm looking at Richard Allen, the way that he looks in prison, and then I'm looking at the Bridge Guy video, I'm thinking, are you guys crazy? That there's no way. There's no way that that's him. And I'm looking at the sketches or whatever. I'm like, no, because he's just changed so much. You should use only verified news or law enforcement photos or videos of Bridge Guy. Lots of people fading in Richard Allen's face. We have. I mean, everything I have is pretty much official. I think that these are valid comparisons as far as, this one here, side by side and kind of honed in. I mean, and again, I think that we're at the point in this case where with the gag order and all that, like, we're not getting new information. We only have 3-second clips from this 43-second video. So I'm sorry if you don't like that I'm sharing what other graphic artists or people have used, but I think, like I said, my moderator is very, very like professional in her editing, and I think that until we get more information from law enforcement and at the trial, then this is kind of what we have to go on. So again, I respect your opinion. Totally. We don't know all the evidence the prosecution has. That's what will matter, right? And that's what's driving me crazy. As of what we have now, I 100% don't believe it's Richard Allen. I need more evidence to change my mind. I'm not 100% that it's Richard Allen, but I think that there must be something that's pointing them towards Richard Allen besides the tip. And I think that Keegan Kline might have something to do with that, as far as maybe he cut a deal or gave them the information they needed that led them there. I think they're valid. And I also don't think you can trust everything law enforcement puts out. Exactly. Thank you for saying that, because I was thinking it, but I want to sound like I was like bashing. But like I was saying earlier, I think that there's a lot of things that law enforcement in this case have done that show incompetency. And I'm not just going to go by what they've put out, because not only did they put out the photo only first, which they should have put out the video first, and experts, retired FBI agent profilers came out saying like they waited too long to put out more information. They should have put that 3-second clip of him walking, or the one on loop, whatever you guys want to do and say. They should have put that out right away. They should not have gone 2 years of us only with the Bridge Guy image. Like, that to me was not good. They missed Richard Allen's tip, also not good. There's a lot of things that they did that was just wrong. And even the imagery, Doug Carter says, don't look at his face, look at his walk, when it's just one step on replay. So how are we supposed to check his gait out? You know what I mean? There's that whole presser where he's covering Bridge Guy's face and he's saying to look at the rest of him. And it's like, what are you talking about? And then there's, it's a sketch is not a photograph. And then once Richard Allen is arrested, he's combining both the sketches and saying, now we have Richard Allen. So no, as much as I respect law enforcement, and like I said, I talk to a federal agent all the time about cases with huge respect for his opinion. But in this case in particular, I think that there's been so many things that law enforcement have done that just have left a bad taste in my mouth that I would almost rather deal with the web sleuths who have this photo here and they've compared it here, or somebody who have taken the eyes and lined it that way. Like, I don't have the time or energy to go and crop all that stuff, but I appreciate all those who have. There isn't. They want to pin it on Allen. The FBI said Logan was consistent with his body and voice. That's very tough to explain how that's wrong and segue back to Allen. And I can't disagree with you there, because we've done so many live streams where we've been like, well, what about this? What about Ron Logan's phone, like kind of pinging in the area? Then people have said, well, he lived there, of course. So it goes back to one thing that I can say with a gut instinct is there's more people involved. Keegan Kline, Ron Logan, I don't know, but in my gut, I'm feeling like it's not just Richard Allen. But unfortunately, it seems like they've actually pinned it, I guess you could say, on Richard as everything. But I feel like he didn't do this alone. I feel like Keegan Kline might have cut some deal where he did come forward and say, yeah, this, and that, but give me immunity and blah, blah, blah. I think that that's definitely possible. And hello, Kelt. Yeah, web sleuths have just about gotten this thing solved. It seems, law enforcement should have solved it years ago, but they haven't. And that's the other thing too, is the gap in time of the arrest is not only did they miss the tip completely, like it's not like it just took a while to arrest someone, like they missed the tip completely. And the time gap, not good. People should never believe what law enforcement say just because they are law enforcement. They can be wrong and have tunnel vision, corrupt, and want to pin the case on someone to get them out of the public spotlight. Yeah, and I totally could see that this case with the multiple agencies involved, the local, federal, and state, there was a difference of opinions. We know that because certain detectives were going down this Odinism angle and thought that there was more weight in it than there was with Richard Allen. So I think also with the Ron Logan search warrant, I mean, FBI pretty much to me is saying like, yeah, it's Ron Logan. It's this guy. He came up with a fake alibi before the girls were even found, So I just feel like, unfortunately, I can't rely on just what law enforcement has said in this case, because they've kind of backpedaled a lot too, and mentioned more than once that there could be more than one person involved. Nobody's been cleared. They've quoted saying, even after Richard Allen was arrested, yet have we seen any other people kind of get arrested or tied to any of this? No, we haven't. So it leads me to think that not that they're just pinning it on Richard Allen and he's innocent, but they're pinning it on Richard Allen because they want a conviction and that's what they have. And Doug Carter has even been asked, like, so you think you have the right guy? And he's said the judge has signed a probable cause affidavit for Richard Allen, blah, blah, blah. Like he kind of beats around the bush with that question. We definitely need more evidence. I just don't see how they're going to prove it to me in court. Like, even if he has damning evidence like that, he was alone. I don't know. There's just too much with Ron Logan and with Keegan Kline that I'm like, so they're just not connected at all. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, none of us have all the information. And I think that drives us crazy. They were looking someone to put in that area at that time and place. Could be. Again, like we're hearing there's none of Richard Allen's DNA at the crime scene. That's a problem, for 12 jurors. Hi, criminality. Good to see you. Yeah, it's just it's a lot. It's a lot. When they show Richard Allen coming out of the white van into court, he's literally below everyone's shoulders. That's true. That's where I'm like, could he have done it alone with a gun? I think it's possible. I think it totally would have been risky. Like, what if one ran? What if you had to shoot the gun off? Like, people were there that day. It was the middle of the day. Like, that's where I'm like, he must have had help, because for him to subdue two girls in the middle of the day, it's even with a gun, I just feel like that's way too risky with how far away he parked too. Like, what was the plan? The Flora stuff I need to look into more, Jane. Something in my gut is saying, because I know a lot of people are thinking that they're connected. I just think, anything's possible at this point, truly. Yeah, we need DNA. It's true. But we don't have the autopsy information. So is it possible, although you would think the defense would already have had that when they filed, basically saying that there was no DNA linking them? And that's the other problem, Jane, is like, is it just coincidence that they were being catfished and other people were probably doing the same? The only issue is the other things that Keegan Kline has kind of done, like failed the question on, and again, polygraphs are not admissible in court. I understand that, but they are a tool used in the investigations, and him failing the question about knowing who did this, that to me, it's like, okay, so then he wasn't just a catfish. There is more to what he knows. But all right, let's keep going with these images. I know you guys are loving them. I'm being sarcastic. Why would Ron Logan put the crime scene on his own property? That's the thing too, is like, I go around with that too. Like, but think about it. Gacy buried all his victims in his crawl space. Chad Daybell had the kids buried in his backyard. There are instances where the killer will have them close so they can keep an eye on them. The other thing too about Ron Logan is if they were out there later, he says that his neighbor asked when he got home from the aquarium, can we look out back on your property because their kids are missing or girls are missing? And he says, yeah, go ahead. And he like stayed in the house, was playing around with his cat or his tropical fish, not catfish, but his tropical fish. Could it be that they were somewhere else at that point and then he felt safe putting them on his property because they had already searched it? Again, then they come and search it the next day and find them. So it's kind of like, why did you do that? But I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. That's a hard one. That definitely is a hard one. Anyone with a gun can control people. The height thing, law enforcement would have been looking for short man for 5 years, but never once said short. Yeah, it's true. But again, 5'5" is what's been quoted, and 5'6" to 5'10", to me, again, not to be rude, but that's short to me. So it has kind of been out there, but yeah, they never like came out saying we're looking for a short, stocky guy. Because I would kind of classify him as short and stocky. The other thing too that's driving me nuts is this comment that I got. Hold on, I'll read it. The only reason why I'm saying it's driving me nuts is because I saw something in a Facebook group that kind of like went along with it. And I was like, what? Hold on, let me try and find it. Okay. The former police assistant captain who helped with the investigation went on Murder Sheet and said the defense sensationalized the Odin ritual angle. However, he said the defense got it right with the suspects they named. So that tells me the crime may have been committed by cult members, but not for a ritual, instead because of an actual motive against one or both girls. Given that BH's son was dating Abby, I would guess it was against Abby. Remember, the FBI interviewed Brad H. 3 days after the murders. They must have had a reason to bring him in. His son dating Abby would only get his son brought in. Bringing in Brad came from something. The same goes for interviewing the cult members, Elvis Fields, Elvis's sister, etc. There's a motive we don't know about that has nothing to do with a ritual. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Also, I don't buy Brad Holder's alibi. Law enforcement have no way of knowing the crime was over at 3:30. BH left work at 2:30. If others got the party started, including his son, BH could have easily been involved. Again, I think that law enforcement would have an indication of if it was over at 3:30 just because of the medical examiner, but we don't have that information. But the only reason why I'm saying that that is like a crazy comment is because this right here. And again, it's on my phone. It was in a Facebook group. So I know it's kind of hard to see because it's on my phone, but I didn't want to like blow it up on my screen because it does. They are mentioned, although in the memorandum. So it's kind of like they've already been put out there in the case, but people are comparing his son and himself to some of the sketches. I don't know. Again, there's way too much reasonable doubt in this case for me to say 100% Richard Allen is guilty and alone in this. And that's where I'm at. Continuing. What do you guys think with that comment? Law enforcement said it came from the Orion system about Richard Allen. Oh, maybe Rosie will continue. I've seen people kind of think that maybe he will. Ron Logan was a criminal at heart. He'd have buried them with excavator or built a cement patio over it. He'd never leave bodies out in the open on his own property. But he did have women and people who came forward who said that's Bridge Guy and he could definitely have done this. So that's the other thing too, is like there was like very early on, like multiple tips of people who knew Ron Logan who were like, yep, he did this, he's violent, this and that. So does he have a criminal mind? Yeah. But I don't know. Criminals do stupid stuff. Deborah says, I think he's innocent. Well, he's definitely innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, in my book. But I'm not 100% on innocent or guilty. But I am kind of certain in my gut that there's more people involved. That's where I'm at. In case anyone's wondering my angle, that's where it's at. Okay, so Keith says, I will guarantee you people, there won't be a trial, not in a million years. And you know what? That could definitely be true. What do you mean? Like he'll sign a plea deal, or other people are saying he's not going to make it in prison? Okay, thank you, Justice Served Daily. It's good to see you. I think Holder's son had photo of him in driver's seat of vehicle. It looked exactly like young, baggy-eyed Sketch. That's what that Facebook group was kind of showing. They had like all these pictures of his son and compared it to that sketch of that guy. He isn't signing a plea deal. Yes, more people. I believe there's going to be another arrest, someone completely off the grid. Oh boy. If that's the case, I'm really going to lose it because I don't know if I can handle a twist that big. Okay, what did I want to share? Oh, no, not that. Sorry, guys. I'm just switching screens. I know I'm probably just staring at one. All right. So this was 4 months ago. This is after Murder Sheet did their interview with Keegan Kline. The reason why I'm kind of pulling this up is because I really think that I want to go through the Keegan Kline police interview and just kind of look things over with that angle. I don't know where he fits in. I feel like if he does fit in somewhere, he's cut a deal. I think it's possible that he had named Richard Allen, possibly. Again, they're saying there's no connection between Keegan Kline and Richard Allen, but is there a connection between Tony Kline and Richard Allen? Yeah, I feel like nobody wants him to make it to trial, in my opinion. And is that why they've sent him so far away? He's like over 3 hours away now, so his attorneys would have to, it's not going to be convenient. All right, so maybe they found another DD statement. Oh gosh. How is that guy like standing up, looking at himself in the mirror confidently? Like he dropped the ball. Sorry, but it's true.
Kane and Kevin Greenlee, podcast hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast. They have recently interviewed Keegan Kline and are here with us now. And they also have vast knowledge of the murders of Abby and Libby on the Monon High Trail and the arrest of Richard Allen in this case, who is the suspect in their murders. To you both, as always, thank you. I want to start with Keegan Kline. You talked to him back in May, and he admitted to some of the charges, but not all. Here's part of that interview.
I'm a human being. I don't think anything I did was okay. And like I told him, I'm not guilty of all those charges, but I am guilty of stuff. I did.
I'm just going to pause it. What do you guys who have seen this interview, the little bits that I've seen of it, he sounded forthcoming, in my opinion, with them. He sounded like he was being legit. But again, I want to know your guys' opinion.
Did talk to underage girls. I'm not saying I never did. And I told him about 100 times, but I mean, some of the stuff I've seen in some of those images, it's like, man, it's crazy. And then like the state police post when I was getting interviewed, they told me some stuff. And I'm like, come on, man, I would never do stuff like that. It's just sickening.
Kevin, does he deny any involvement with Abby and Libby's death?
He has maintained that he has no involvement in those murders. He indicates that it's possible he might have some knowledge pertaining to some of the background information about what happened to the girls, but he says he himself has no direct knowledge or connection to the murders.
That's interesting. What type of background are we talking about?
We don't really know. All we know is that in our conversation with him, he sort of offered to write us a letter indicating, the extent of what he knows or what he was trying to convey to investigators at some point. But he himself notes that basically investigators have not been able to corroborate a lot of what he says. So we don't know how much use that is to the investigation if it's not being corroborated.
So he's going to put it in a letter, but he wasn't willing to say it during this interview. Did he say why?
Well, at that time, he was still pending sentencing, and I think he was reluctant to speak too much about that case, given what a hot button issue it is. And he indicated that he would be interested more in speaking afterwards, which we understood.
Right. So now I'm wondering what his interaction was with Libby, if he's been able to provide any more details that night before in that conversation. Kevin, what more has he said about that?
At this point, he hasn't said much more about that. Most of what we know about that comes from investigators who, in their interview with him shortly after his arrest, they discussed how he had contact with Libby shortly before the murders. After the murders happened, but before the bodies were discovered, Anthony Schatz is said to have communicated with someone else that he'd had plans to meet Libby that day.
Does Keegan Kline know Richard Allen? Have the two crossed paths? Have you been able to find that out?
No, yeah, we've definitely not been able to link them together. And Keegan Kline maintains that he does not know Richard Allen. The closest we've come is that we found people who knew both the Allens and the Kline family. They basically grew up near each other. Peru, Indiana, where the Klines are from, and Mexico, Indiana, where the Allens are from, are right next to one another. And actually, in fact, Allen's wife attended Peru High School. So there seems to be some mutual friends, but frankly, that's not too surprising in a small town.
43 years for these crimes. As an attorney, Kevin, did the crimes fit the sentence?
The crimes are pretty horrific. And actually, during the hearing yesterday, we got some more details about what he did, how he manipulated these girls. We got some pretty horrifying details about some of the contents of some of the videos that he retained on his phone. And the prosecution and the probation officer who testified talked at length about how he doesn't seem to have learned any lessons from this, and that he still is having similar communications with adult women while he's been incarcerated. And they indicated they feel that he's at a high risk to reoffend. And so that explains at least part of the thinking behind this long of a sentence.
Yet he told you both he was remorseful for what he had done.
Yes, he did. He expressed remorse. And actually, one of the people testifying for the prosecution at his sentencing hearing was a probation officer. She indicated that he expressed remorse to her as well. But essentially, I think the calculus was amongst these people was, he's still maybe employing some of the same behaviors. So that's very concerning and not necessarily taking ownership. This is what they're saying. And essentially, I mean, I think it's important to stress that the sentence reflects what the judge thinks of the crimes and the criminal episodes of this criminal conduct, and not any connection to the Delphi murders. Obviously, he's not been charged with that. That would be inappropriate to factor that into his sentence.
Yeah. So at this point, seemingly two different cases, but they've all been intertwined to date. We'll continue to follow it closely as.
Again, I think that it's interesting the difference of opinions, like from Murder Sheet before like all this Odinism stuff came out, and before we found out how poorly Richard Allen was being treated allegedly. I just feel like everyone's opinion on Murder Sheet has changed, where I felt like always like these people, have built their whole podcast all around this case. What are they going to do when it's over with? And then now I'm finally seeing people kind of be on that page of like, they just want their 15 minutes of fame. I'm feeling like they're just a mouthpiece for the prosecution to get around the gag order. Unfortunately, they are kind of tied to the case as far as them having information. So at times, like, yeah, people who cover this case definitely source them. But I think that some of the things that we notice about, in their background or how they're dressed or what they look like, it's just kind of entertaining to me. Like, I don't mean to sound mean, but it's just like, they have to know that they're characters, right? Like, they purposely do their hair and stuff like that because that's what they like. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's just a difference in opinion about Murder Sheet now, where I'm like, finally people are seeing what I've been saying for like a while. But they are tied to it. So Keegan Kline is a manipulator. We cannot believe him, but we could look at what he says and try to corroborate it. And sometimes what people aren't saying is important too. So we have kind of, and from the information in his interview with police, it seems like the police are feeling like other people were using the account and talking to the girls a specific way. Maybe it's his father and he just hasn't thrown him under the bus or whatever. So it's like sometimes what people aren't saying is also important too, as far as figuring out like where the truth lies. But yes, I think they're getting paid by the prosecution and the family. And it's convenient that the trial was delayed for them, right? Because it was supposed to happen in January. They're a part of this leak that gets the lawyers taken out. And they also state that they have pages of the discovery that was leaked, and nobody is talking about that. Like remember how we were talking about how Mitch Westerman was charged with and got in trouble for taking the crime scene photos on the table side by side. I've seen people say that, oh, his charges are probably going to get dropped. He won't even get in trouble for doing that. And I'm like, but what about the discovery pages? People are claiming that they have pages of the discovery. Murder Sheet was on Court TV saying they have pages of the discovery. And it's like, that's just being brushed under the rug. That is like more troubling than I think crime scene photos being out there. Did Anthony Schott's Dropbox lead law enforcement to the biggest CSAM ring or some such? I think that that's possible. I think that they definitely uncovered a lot as soon as they pulled in Keegan Kline and got information from him. Murder Sheet are not experts on this case. They have done exactly what the defense did and leaked documents. And yet people turn a blind eye to that aspect. And that is the truth. So I don't know, guys. 5 more minutes. Let's get into some of this. This was before a year ago. So right around the time the gag order was put on. We're obviously not going to get to 42 minutes of it, and I'm sure you guys have already seen it, but there are like interviews in here, like Doug Carter and stuff like that I haven't seen that I think would be interesting. So let's just start it together, and then we'll end this stream and at the 1.5 hour mark, like I like to do. And of course, we'll be following this case more and discussing it more. And yeah, thank you all for being here. If you haven't hit like already, please do so. And we can just talk while we finish up and watch this.
Three words that have haunted a small town for 5 years.
It's Everytown, USA, and those things don't happen in Everytown, USA. But it happened in Delphi, Indiana.
A chilling discovery.
Why Libby? Why Abby?
That turned a safe haven into a crime scene.
I don't think you have to be embarrassed if you're scared right now. A lot of people in town are scared.
Tonight, a case the world refuses to give up on.
We told each other we loved each other, and that was the last time I told her.
Following every lead.
I still get probably 25 and 40 direct tips a week right here, literally from around the world.
And every clue.
On the surface, it appears like the police have a lot, right?
Trying to unlock the mystery.
And yet here we are 5 years later.
Fit the pieces together.
We have hope.
Together, we'll get this guy.
Solve the unsolved.
We must keep our resolve for Libby and Abby to ensure that good trumps evil.
And catch a killer.
And isn't it interesting? Scottish Queen says, when this case is over, Murder Sheet will be nobody's again. A man has died because of their actions of reporting people leaking stuff, and they have leaked documents from the prosecutor. And isn't it interesting that, this whole leak that got Richard Allen's lawyers removed bought the prosecution more time to prepare for this conviction that they want so badly. Like, I feel like the whole leak was orchestrated because we know that other people have had these crime scene photos. Even people who were on scene first and found them were taking photos. That's the rumor. But, how convenient that the prosecution is able to get more time because the trial is delayed. And also this podcast is able to get another year out of, their coverage on this case, which is giving them like money, you know what I mean? So when I say that I believe that they're a mouthpiece for the prosecution, for law enforcement, I believe that in my gut, because it's a relationship that benefits them both. And that has happened in journalism since the beginning of journalism. You know, they've always worked with law enforcement and the state, and they've always pushed information that's given to them from secret sources and stuff like that. And that's just how it goes. But I just feel like it's so obvious in this case.
They're watching. And we'll meet them soon. We'll meet them.
A special edition of News Nation Prime starts right now.
And good night, everybody who's leaving. We're ending this
From
pretty
News
much
Nation
now.
headquarters, this
Oh.
is News Nation Prime with Marnie Hughes.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Marnie Hughes. Tonight, we are bringing you a special hour of News Nation Prime. Over the course of the next hour, we are focusing on this one unsolved case that has gripped the country and the world for 5 years. It centers around the small town of Delphi, Indiana, located a little more than a half an hour north of Indianapolis. Two young girls, best friends, Abby Williams and Libby German, 13 and 14 years old, were out for a walk on a popular hiking trail when they were brutally murdered. Their bodies found 5 years ago today, on Valentine's Day. From the very beginning, authorities have said this case can and will be solved. They have video and audio of the killer, but this person is still out there, living among us. Someone, somewhere, knows something. Tonight, we are taking you back to Delphi, laying out the case, what we have learned over the last 5 years. Investigators say this case is not cold, and they are still getting up to 40 tips a week. One of the people leading the investigation, Doug Carter, the superintendent of Indiana State Police, will be joining us for a live, rare interview. But our coverage begins now with investigative correspondent Rich McHugh.
Delphi, Indiana. Population 3,000, nestled among a network of parks and wilderness trails, is like many Midwestern towns, quiet and peaceful. But 5 years ago, that peace was shattered. 13-year-old Abby Williams
It's a scarf. No. It's just pink.
and 14-year-old Libby German
The turkey kisses into this iced coffee and make it coffee kiss.
best friends and your typical happy-go-lucky 8th graders. On the afternoon of February 13, 2017, Libby asked her older sister Kelsey to drive them to the nature trails.
So they just got out of the car and walked down the trail to go to High Bridge. We told each other we loved each other, and that was the last time I saw her.
All right, that's where we're gonna stop for tonight. I'll watch that, and I don't know if there's anything that kind of stands out as meaningful or valuable, I will clip it and edit it in for our next review of things. But thank you guys for being here. So we go live Tuesdays and Friday nights usually. We're covering this case as well as other ones. We're also digging back into the Watts case with my friend CDT. So stay tuned for that live. I'm going to go live when it's convenient for CDT for Watts. So it might be outside of the Tuesday, Friday. It might not be. It just depends on her and when she can come on and join me. So again, I appreciate everyone's opinions and I respect everybody's opinions as long as you're respectful, and everybody has been completely respectful. So thank you guys so much for being here. And yeah, if you guys want to share more thoughts on anything that we talked about, you can comment down below. I definitely will read them. But you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we're going to be continuing the conversation and the deep dive into this case here. As well as Criminality, who I moderate for and cover this case over in her chat too. Like sometimes the stuff that I say in her chat, I'm like, oh, I got to remember to say that in my live stream later, because it's just sometimes she'll say something or somebody in chat says something that kind of sparks a thought. And I'm like, oh, wow, like that's interesting, or I got to jot that down. And then I never do. So basically I'm saying if you check out her channel too, and there's a chat replay, you can see all of our comments in the chat, and it's got some interesting stuff there. So we'll talk soon, guys, and I'll see you in the YouTube streets. I'm always around and supporting my favorite channels. So I'll see you guys later.